Me?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
no,
was
no.
really confused. Like, I didn't want
I do different things. I'll do birthday, Christmas, Hanukkah.
My birthday's at the end of the year. At the end of the school year. It's always one of the right around the last day.
Usually ends up right on the last day.
Sometimes. It's at the end of April. Okay. Well, we have some people here. Good morning. We're a little short. That's okay. I'm gonna jump right in. Robert, that's a cool looking chain or whatever that is. It looks like you just took some links off of the fence and did you? That's cool. Jeb made something like that out of guitar strings. Yeah, he made one out of guitar strings. Where is it? Okay. Anyway. Did he? I don't know.
Audrey lost her. Anyways.
All right. Are you ready? Somebody's coming up the stairs, I think. So we'll wait another 2 seconds. Okay. So let's start with. Good morning, Jada. Did you already look at the temperature for us and see what it said on?
I didn't look at the temperature, but I put it on 72.
Thanks. Perfect. Okay. These are different words. They sound the same, but they are different words. If you are mixing up there, and there, if you are mixing up your and your, if you're mixing up its and its, cease and desist. Stop immediately. Stop immediately. These are different words. They have the same sound, but they're spelled differently and they're different words. If I said, hand me a red crayon, is this right? No, of course not. Of course not. It sounds the same, but it's a different word because it's spelled differently. Okay? So if you are confusing these, look them up. Get it together. You guys are in high school. Come on. Okay. And perhaps you are not the one mixing these up. And if it's not you, don't worry about it, man. If it's not you, don't worry about it. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, sometimes it's called parenthetic expressions. I may call it that, I may call it something else. I'm going to say restrictive and non-restrictive phrases and clauses. Have y'all heard that before? Restrictive and non-restrictive phrases and clauses. No? Okay. A restrictive phrase, good morning. A restrictive phrase or a restrictive clause is something that must be in the sentence, because if you take it out, you're losing a detail that you actually must have for the meaning of the sentence. You're losing something that really will change your sentence if you take that out. So let's say, the girl who has braids took my, what did she take? Sandwich. What did she take? She took my pony. The girl who has braids. Who has braids? The girl who has braids took my sandwich, or my pony, if you're illegal. The girl who has braids. So this, if you took it out, the girl took my sandwich. Well, there might be 4 girls standing there. So if you take this out, you lose an important detail because this is an identifier. Okay, this identifies who you're talking about. So if you take this out, you have lost that identifier and it's changing the meaning of your sentence. It's changing what you're trying to communicate. Does that make sense? So this is restrictive. It's restrictive. You must have it. Okay. If I say the girl who sometimes forgets her sandwich took mine. The girl who sometimes forgets her sandwich took mine. Okay, so I could take this out because if she sometimes forgets her sandwich, well, it's not exactly identifying her right there. Because sometimes she forgets it and sometimes she doesn't. She might have it with her. This is an aside for this particular girl. It might be true about her. Sometimes this, but it's not going to identify her in the moment. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is non-restrictive. You could take it out. If you took out this, then you still have the girl took mine. And then you can talk about what mine is, but we just said sandwich. So if you can take it out and still maintain the meaning of your sentence, this is non-restrictive. Okay? Does that make sense? Nod your heads. Thanks. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of a different one. All right, so this is going to go into something that I'm going to talk about. Yeah, I shouldn't be using this. Where's Anna? I'm wasting the paper towels you got me. I should be using the eraser. Okay. What'd you say? Leila? Why did I have paper towels? Because this board is so terrible, I feel like I'm going to have to clean it often.
I think there's a dry erase somewhere. There should be.
A dry erase cleaner?
I don't know where.
Okay.
Plastic is
Maybe over there. It's okay.
I was using plastic out one of those fun dryers.
Okay. Oh, well, I may try it, or I may just stick with this for right now. All right. In the English language, our sentences are made up of segments. They're made up of sort of blocks of language. And so I'm going to talk more about that as we go through the years. After we get past poetry, we have after this week, we have a couple more weeks of poetry, and then we're going to shift into stories. And at that point, I'm going to add in some sentence building exercises, hopefully that will make punctuation a little bit easier to understand because you can see the blocks of meaning. Okay. So let me start this way. Let me say, Jim hates grits. Do you hate grits too? Yeah? Y'all like grits? Some of you? Okay. Jim hates grits. Subject, verb. Anybody know what this is?
Grits?
Yeah. Direct object. Somebody over there said it. Something is getting hated, right? Something is getting hated. Jim hates grits. Subject, verb, direct object. It's all one chunk of meaning. Right? You see what I'm saying? Okay. So then what if I add in although he lives in the South. Although he lives in the South. Do you know what is this? Anybody know what this is? It's a clause. It's a dependent clause, right? Sometimes it's called a subordinate clause. It's dependent because you can't leave it like this. It depends on more information to make sense. Although he lives in the South, Jim hates grits. Okay. To put those together, you have dependent and you have independent. So you can say Jim hates grits, although he lives in the South. Period. Complete sentence, right? Okay. If we flipped it around, we put the comma here, and then Jim hates grits. Here. So we're covering that up. Dependent comes first, comma, independent. Independent clause. Okay. What do we do? Because this is your block of meaning, right? This is your, what do we want to call it? A segment. This is a segment of meaning. It means something. This is your other segment right now. It's longer. But what if we want to put this one into this one? What if we want to interrupt this one and kind of shove this one in the middle? You could say, Jim, comma, although he lives in the South, comma, hates grits. Okay. I have told you guys before, maybe not this year, when you're writing, do not separate your subject and your verb by only one comma. You don't do that. Don't separate your subject and your verb by just one comma. Here, you have, which one's I want to point to? Jim is the subject. This is still the verb, right? But you don't just have one comma. You have 1, 2. Because you're taking this block of meaning and you're jamming it into the other block, which is why you have to put commas around it. You're breaking up Jim hates grits. This is your block of meaning. This is your, what's the other word I used? Not block, segment. This is your segment of meaning, and sentences are written in segments, okay? This is your segment. If you're gonna break this segment up and jam something in the middle there, you need to put commas around it. Set it off with commas. Does that make sense? We're gonna talk more about that later as we're building sentence structure. Okay, any questions so far? All right, anybody missing besides Daniel? Who's missing? Coleman is not here.
He had to finish his paper, so he's not on finishing his paper.
He's had a tough time. I'm sorry about that. No, there's nothing wrong with Coleman. He's okay. He's got a really tough dual enrollment professor who's really hard-nosed. Like, Coleman did an essay. I actually read it and kind of helped him with it. It was great already. He did a good job, but he gave it to the professor, and the professor gave him a 0 because he put his title in bold. He put the title he put the title in bold print, so the professor gave him a 0 on the whole assignment. And I was like, ah.
So was it formatted?
Well, it was supposed to be MLA, and that was the only thing he had out of place. And we've done MLA for papers, but I've never been really strict about it on essays. So I thought, yeah, that's really tough. Okay. What do I want to talk about next? Antecedents. What is an antecedent? It's an antecedent. Somebody knows what an antecedent is.
Oh, I know, but I don't know.
Okay. When you're using pronouns, a pronoun is taking the place of a noun. Yes, a pronoun is taking the place of a. Are you okay? Really? Are you okay? All right. You look like you're hurt. I don't know what's going on over there, y'all. Back to this. A pronoun is taking the place of a noun, but the antecedent is the noun that is being replaced. An antecedent is telling you who that pronoun is talking about. So sometimes we're not super clear. We kind of leave our pronouns dangling out and we don't even know what they mean. So you have to be really clear in your pronouns. let me just give you an example. Okay. Let's see. The chieftain mounted his horse and put paint on his face.
The horse's face.
So whose face is getting painted? Is it the chieftain or is it the horse? Is he painting his own face or his horse's face?
The horse.
Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like he mounted his horse and then he put paint on his horse's face. So you have to be really clear about, I mean, grammatically, it could go that way. It could go that way. So let me do another one. The grandfather took the boy inside, but shut his finger in the door. The grandfather took the boy inside, but shut his finger in the door. Whose finger's in the door? Maybe. It's either the boy's or the grandfather's. It's hard to tell. It would be really, really terrible for a grandfather to shut his grandson's finger in the door, but such things happen. Anyway, when you're not being very clear with your pronouns and your antecedents, there's some confusion. It can go either way in these. The cat scratched the girl twice before she got off the bed. Well, the cat is doing the scratching, but who actually gets off the bed? It's either the cat or the girl, but that's not clear, right? You would need more explanation after that, or you just need to write a clearer sentence. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Let's see. What do I want to do next? All right, I'm going to move away from grammar. All right. And I think I'm going to talk about what I want you to do this week. Colin's not here.
Oh, yeah.
Colin is not here. Anybody else?
Oh, yes,
Huh? Colin?
he's here.
He's downstairs. Are both of y'all sick? Like, can't talk?
I can't talk. I just have allergies.
Okay. Well, I didn't say that because I was afraid of you. I'm just like, neither one of you are talking. Sounds like you both lost your voice. All right. Here, take one and pass it. Okay, so assignments this week. You have some extras. Thank you. Okay, last week we did sonnets and free verse. Okay, whatever y'all are doing, go ahead. Sonnets and free verse. Do not give yourselves away with your face when I say this, but some of y'all forgot that a sonnet needs to be 10 syllables a line. 10 syllables per line. Some of y'all forgot. Most of you forgot. There were a handful who actually remembered that. Still, a lot of you wrote very, very nice, beautiful things. They just didn't exactly fit the pattern. Okay. What?
Elfin.
Elfine. The end.
Oh.
All right. So this week I'm going to have you do a couple of different things, and one of your assignments is going to be to write a poem by starlight or by firelight. If you're out in the country, some of us are out in the country enough that we can go out at night and really have a good view of the stars. Sometimes a view of the stars, a view of the night sky will put things in perspective and make us realize who we are in the universe, you know. Go out at night, look up at the stars. What does it make you think of? What do you think about? Or sit by the fire, sit by a candle with no other light. It will narrow your focus. Okay. She's laughing at me.
It's like sorcery.
Huh?
Go out and buy a starlight and write your poem.
You do how you want to do it then. You don't like what I'm saying? It's a prompt. Okay. The other one is diminishing verse. And this one, you can choose, this is not, you don't have to have a certain number of words in the line. You don't have to have a certain number of syllables. But the diminishing verse means that the last word in every line is going to lose a letter as you go. Okay. So let me just give you some words that can do that, and then you write what you want to write. Some of these are going to be like some words, as they lose a letter, you'll have a full rhyming set of words. And sometimes it'll be more of a loose slant rhyme. So if I started and I had the word spout, what's next if I lose a letter? Spot.
That's wait.
Yeah, I would go pout. I'd go pout. And then out. If you went spot, you could do spout, spot, pot, or sot. Yeah. So this spout, pout, out, right here. Sorry. This is going to be full rhyming, right? I can hear y'all. This is going to be full rhyming. Spout, hush, Layla. Be quiet. Spout, spot, pot. Spout, spot, pot. Not full rhyming, but it's a loose slant rhyme. So, what about another one? Beard. Bear.
Bard.
Or bard. So the other one could be bard. What? Bar. What? Okay. Ear over here. You see what I'm saying? As you go down, you're going to lose one letter from each word. Okay. And some of them are going to be full rhyming, depending on what you use, and some of them are going to be sort of a slant rhyme. Okay. Next. Y'all have any questions about that at all? Thank you.
So great. It can be any syllables and
It can be any syllables. The only restriction here is that it needs to diminish at the end of, you're losing a letter out of the word per line. Okay. And I gave you an example of that so you can see what I did. How many lines? So I wrote 6 lines there, and so I want at least 6 lines from y'all. If you want to do more than that, bless your soul. Whatever you want to do, okay? The other one, the starlight or firelight, it can be a free verse. It can rhyme if you want it to rhyme. It does want to rhyme. Some of y'all love rhyme and hate free verse. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna shift into something different.
This is technically, the starlight one is
It's a free verse.
Stars.
Yeah.
Wait, so it's not line, don't have to line.
Doesn't have to rhyme.
Just write it down in particular. Starlight.
No, it doesn't have to be starlight. Mine's not about starlight. Because I didn't write under the stars. I wrote,
You wrote about an offensive smell.
I did.
Your story.
I did. And I'm actually not going to explain that one. All right. Not going to explain it. All right. I want to go back to something that I said last week. Because last week I was talking about realism. And I mentioned Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn. And I couldn't draw up the name Jim, but we got to it. Leela got it for me.
I googled it.
Thank you. Okay, so as one of the things that I said about Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn is that he really wasn't as concerned about plot, which is true. I mean, he says at the beginning. He says in the introduction, if you're looking for this, this is going to be the result. If you're he gave like 3 things. Don't be looking for this, and one of them was plot. And he said, those of you who are looking for plot should be shot. And then he goes on to say, I'm going to be really, really I'm going to give you, I think he's maybe 7 or 8 different dialects, because that was the important thing to him, the details. And I said it was a little odd to me that he kept them on the raft going south when a runaway slave would want to go north. I think in my mind I was comparing it to Uncle Tom's Cabin. Have y'all read that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So very different feeling. But when those slaves escaped, they immediately went north. Very different feeling, very different reason for writing the book, all that. Anyway, that was the comparison. Are you saying something? Do what?
Weren't they closer to north? Like, I can see why you would want to go south if you're native, like, if you lived in the islands in the south.
Okay, well, Jim and Huckleberry were in Missouri. And so it would make, if he didn't want to keep them in the South where he knew all of the geography and he knew all of the dialects and all of that, if it was just about the slave escaping, I think he would have gone north. But, and he even mentions that in the book. I don't know if it's Huckleberry or one of the other characters who says something about it. But they stayed in the South. And have you read that one? Have you read Huckleberry Finn? Some of it. It was easier for me to listen to that one because, like I said before, he kind of spells out the way that they would pronounce something. He writes it out, and so when I'm reading that, it's hard for me to read it in my head the way he would say it because I'm not used to the spelling, you know. But you can find almost anything on audio, and people are just dying to read to you. You can look on Kindle, you can look on Spotify, you can find things on YouTube, and people will read these things to you as you're doing your chores. You know, whatever you're doing, people want to read to you. So take advantage of that when you can. I listen to a lot of stuff because it's easier for me to listen to stuff and kind of get it in while I'm driving or while I'm doing the dishes or while I'm doing laundry or whatever it is. Anyway, take advantage of that. But I didn't want y'all to think that I was throwing off on Mark Twain because he really is a pillar of American literature. And his work hasn't been around this long because it's boring. It's not. It's well worth the read or the listen. Okay, so we're moving from realism into modernism. Okay, so realism. Do anybody remember the dates that I gave you for that?
Charles.
What?
Charles Darwin. That's all.
Charles Darwin. You remember Charles Darwin? Okay, so
Haven't heard that together.
thank you. So yeah, 1861 to 1914, which would have been the war between the states up to World War I. Okay, and then Charles Darwin was part of that. The change in thinking from man is good to man is pretty not so good, pretty animalistic. So now the natural progression from that into modernism, well, let me give you the dates for modernism. Most people would put modernism at 1915, right at the end of realism. So 1915 to 1945. And some people push that a little bit higher up towards 60, but let's say 1915 to 1945. Those dates, anybody know why would those be important? 1915, 1945. Yeah. So you're coming right on the heels of World War One, and then you're getting to the end of World War II. And so a lot of things changed in World War One because, well, it affected the whole world. But here in America, you've gone the style of war, and probably, I would say everywhere, the style of war has gone from infantry and rifles and bayonets to, yeah, once you get to World War II, you have things that explode. Like not just cannonballs, but you have tanks that are being used. You have airplanes being used for the first time in war. You have chemical warfare, which is new. That was new. And it's something that, okay, so if you have already begun to think that man is not good and that man is pretty animalistic, pretty animal-like, once you get to World War One and you see all of these new ways that we destroy one another, your faith in humanity just plummets. Because either you think that people have really turned away from God, or God has abandoned the world, or both. You see what I'm saying? So you get to World War One, and a lot of the writers have this idea that everything that has come before is just gone. It's just lost. And some of the writers are really kind of edgy and angry about this. And some of them, you read their stuff and there's this sadness. There's this mourning over what has been lost. Okay. And I have some things that I want to let you read. I'm going to hand that out in a minute. But what you get in modernist writing is a very, very deliberate break from everything that has come before. So always before, there have been certain patterns in storytelling and certain patterns in poetry that everybody tended to follow. And then when you get to modernism, you have people say, none of that matters anymore. I'm going to do it my own way. I'm going to try something new. And there was actually one poet, his name was Ezra Pound, and he, in a lot of ways, kind of spearheaded a lot of this, because one of the things that he is credited with is saying, make it new. And what he meant was find a new way to say the things that you mean, and find a way to say new things. Find a way to say new things and say them in a new way. Make it new. And that's what he is given credit for saying. So that was kind of a big part of this modernism movement. They wanted a clean break from what came before, because a lot of them are looking at things, and it's the whole world almost the whole world is involved in this World War movement. Everybody sees the destruction. And so you have people living through this, and some of the writers that I'm going to give you this week are not even American. Some of them might be from a couple that I'm going to have you read here. There's one that's Irish, and there's one that's Welsh. And so they're not American, but they're all living through the same time period. They're all seeing the same kind of destruction. And many of them feel tricked. They feel tricked because you've been brought up to believe that, going back a little bit further, there's this there's this idea of progress, that the technology that we're producing as we go along, it's going to enable us to be better and better people. Like eventually we'll be able to do away with poverty because technology will provide us with everything that we need. Nobody's going to go hungry. And if nobody has any need, crime goes away. Right? And so there's this idea of progress. And the idea is that with technology, with growth, with all of these steps that we're taking, that eventually we will rise to the point that we've kind of saved ourselves. You know, we've sort of saved ourselves from evil. We've saved ourselves from poverty. We've saved ourselves from crime. We've saved ourselves from just being terrible. And what modernist writers find, or what they would say, this is a myth. And Christianity actually would refute that too. But Christianity looks at everything going on and has an answer for it. But what you get in modernism is people looking around and saying, this is meaningless. We're animals and we're killing each other, and none of this stuff that I was taught is true. It's all garbage. I'm going to completely turn away from this, and what's the point of this anyway? All of this is meaningless. And there's really a sadness to it. There's a sadness. It's a depressing thing. It's a depressing, a lot of these writers are depressed or angry. There's just this loss of faith in God. There's a loss of faith in humans. And and so when they lose all of that and then they start their writing, that brokenness comes through in their writing, in art of all kinds. Think about Picasso. Y'all ever seen anything by Picasso?
Mm-hmm.
Just the weird shapes that don't even look like people sometimes. Like the blocks and the triangles and it just looks odd. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Picasso's work? Look it up at some point. But writers and painters and all different kinds of art during that time look at the brokenness and fragmented nature of their society, of what they just see the world as completely broken. And some of the authors and the painters find a way to put that brokenness into their work. Does that make sense? And I'm going to give you some examples here in just a minute. Okay. Okay, let me start with this. I'm going to give you these. I also have some things on your assignment sheet that you can look up, but this is just for right now. All right. The first one, I'm going to play this one for you. It's called Dulce et Decorum Est. And translated, that means basically it is a, do you already know?
Oh no,
I thought you were grinning at me because you might already know.
Oh no.
It's a good and sweet, beautiful thing to give your life for your country. That's what this one is about. And so this writer, Wilfred Owen, is from Wales. And I actually have this one saved because I want you to follow along as he reads it. This is somebody who has been through World War I, and he has seen the gas attacks. This is what he's describing, okay?
Bent double, like old beggars under sacks. Knock-knee, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of disappointed shells that dropped behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or line. Dim, through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him, drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If, in some smothering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children, ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori.
Do you hear the despair? Do you hear the despair in that? I think anybody who has seen that kind of thing could write with such desperation, but that is the overarching feeling of this time. You lied to us. All of these things that you told us, they're not true. God has left us. He has abandoned us. We have turned away from him. God is not even with us anymore. He may not even exist. There might not be any such thing as right and wrong. It's terribly depressing. And so you have that is the hard-edged modernism. And then you have, and I'm not going to go through all of these. Ezra Pound is that short one there on the lower side. Let's see, I don't have, okay. The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. This guy is Irish. He was from Ireland. And this one is really a very famous work too, which is why I put it on here. And I don't want to go through all of that, but he is intentionally using images from Christianity. And I'm pretty sure that he was raised Roman Catholic. I think that's right. I could be wrong about that, but definitely he is very familiar with Christian themes and Christian images, and he's using them on purpose. And so he's bringing up this idea of the second coming, and he knows that that is going to make you think about Jesus. Okay, and even in the last line, he's talking about this creature. It's not Jesus, but he's talking about this creature with the lion body and the head of a man, and it's just this kind of terrifying figure, and he's talking about it slouching toward Bethlehem. So in the way that Christians believe that Jesus came to Bethlehem to make a new beginning for the world, he's not actually talking about Jesus. He's not actually talking about that, but he's talking about this new thing that has come. And it's not a salvation. It's this terrible thing. It's this monstrous thing that he believes has come into the world, and there's a new beginning here, and it's not good. Okay, this is really a famous poem, and I'm running out of time, so I can't go through this one very far. I do want to go to that last one on your sheet. This is by E.E. Cummings, and it's called "A Leaf Falls with Loneliness." And the reason that I wanted to bring this one in is because this is a really good example of him. We've done some of his stuff before, but I've just kind of had you read it, and I haven't really talked through it. This is an example of somebody who's taking the forms, the set forms of poetry, and he's just smashing them to pieces. This is a guy who's he's gonna break all of the rules of grammar. He's gonna break all of the forms because he wants to do it a different way. He wants to come up with something brand new that nobody has ever done. So if you look at what he's doing, first of all, he's taking the image of a leaf that's falling to the ground, and a lot of times that in some poems that tends to make you think of loneliness, just this lone leaf fluttering down. And if you can imagine this leaf, it doesn't go, no leaf just falls straight down. How does it move when it goes down? Yeah, it moves like this, kind of a back and forth. And so if you look at his lines, he's intentionally breaking his words so that there's a little back and forth movement. You see that? See what he's doing? So he's intentionally breaking his lines, and he's not following any form that's ever been established. He's just making it up on his own. He's just doing all this on his own. And look at the way that he's designed this. You have the L, and then you have the phrase "a leaf falls," but you have the L, and then you have "a leaf falls." So "a leaf falls" is enclosed in the other word. You see it? Okay. So he's got this idea that this leaf falling looks like loneliness. And so he's put this phrase in the word loneliness, and then he's broken it up to show the movement of the leaf falling. You see it? And so E.E. Cummings, I can't remember where he was from, but I read something, well, I listened to something this summer that he wrote. It's called The Enormous Room. And he and a buddy of his were actually held in a French prison camp for about 4 months, 4 or 5 months. He might have been, E.E. Cummings was the American guy, I think. But he was held in this prison camp for 4 months because of some pacifist letters. And I think his buddy actually wrote the letters. But the style of the writing was not, I mean, it was kind of lighthearted in some places. He's telling about all these different people that he met and the places that they're from, and there's a lot of French in there. And I didn't understand all that because I don't speak French. But there was enough that I could follow the story, and it was really well written. It was well written because he was a good writer. Okay. But he also would fit, his sentiments would fit with the general modernist movement, where they're looking at this and going, this just doesn't mean anything anymore. None of this means anything. Okay, next. I did bring in a couple of riddles. Did y'all enjoy that? Okay, I'm going to pass out assignment sheets because we only have a few minutes left. Assignments. Y'all can look over those. If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay. We have several. All right. This one is called Robbing the Bank. Robbing the bank. Upon being tipped off that a large organization paid its employees on a certain day, and that its employees went to a specific bank to cash their paychecks at a certain time on that day, a gang decided to rob the bank at exactly that day and time. They would have been better off if they had robbed the bank on any other day than that one, or at any other time during that day. Why?
They were all police officers.
You've heard this one before.
No,
I was thinking that.
They were all police officers. Okay. Yes, they were all police officers. And actually,
I don't think police officers get paid all that much.
no, but if you get them all in the same place, maybe it's worth it. All right, let me see if I can get another one. Okay, no ransom demand. No ransom demand. A man entered a government building and went through a weapons detector search. Then he entered a government office and displayed a sawed-off shotgun. Up against the wall, everyone, he ordered. Then, after everyone complied, he called the police. When police officers arrived, he put down his gun and cooperated with them. He refused to defend himself in court and was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and given a long prison sentence. What is the point of taking people hostage if you don't make a ransom demand? Asked a news reporter. I thought of making one, he replied, but there just didn't seem to be any point to it. So why did the man act as he did? And this is one where you're going to have to ask some questions to get to this one, I think. Are the people held hostage criminals? No. They're in a government building, but they're not criminals. Did he want to go to jail? Yes, he did. That's a good question. He wanted to go to jail. It wasn't a police officer building. Well, what? Was he on the run? He wasn't on the run from anyone. How did he get the gun in? He was, I don't know that he was homeless. I don't think that enters into it. How did he get the gun through the metal detector? This is one where there could be several answers to these riddles, and I'm looking for a particular one. He was not a security guard. He actually had to go through the metal detector.
Read the part about the gun again.
Okay.
Please.
Read the part about the gun again. A man entered a government building and went through a weapons detector search. Then he entered a government office and displayed a sawed-off shotgun. Up against the wall, everyone, he ordered. Then, after everyone complied, he called the police. When the police officers arrived, he put down his gun and cooperated with them. He refused to defend himself in court and was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and given a long prison sentence. What's the point of taking people hostage if you don't make a ransom demand? Asked a news reporter. I thought of making one, he replied, but there just didn't seem to be any point to it. So why did the man act as he did?
Was the gun real?
Was the gun real? Yes, the gun was real. It was a deadly weapon. Yes, it was real. It's a good question. How did he get it in? How could you get anything metal in what situation? Hold on, guys. In what situation could you take something metal and it would be okay? We take it through a metal detector.
When it's part of your body.
Yes, the gun was not part of his body, but he's in a wheelchair.
Here we go, guys.
He takes in this shotgun because he's in a wheelchair. The metal on the wheelchair is already going to set off the alarm. They didn't find the gun. Okay, so you got that much. He's in a wheelchair. He gets through this government security in a wheelchair with a sawed-off shotgun. He's got this deadly weapon. He's making this assault. Wants to go to prison. Why?
Dang, that's sad.
What?
Why? Why does he need somebody to take care of him? Well, there's yeah. We can leave it at that. There's more to it. So,
What's more to it?
I mean, if he's in a wheelchair and he's gotten himself to the government building, he obviously can get around. He's dying.
This is sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I get the whole
There doesn't seem to be any point in making a ransom demand. Like, what are you going to do with it if you're already sick and for some reason you need care and you're not getting it wherever you are? So he's become desperate.
Dang.
Okay.
Okay, on that note.
One more.
Okay. So this one you'll probably get it fairly quickly. Do y'all know what a drawbridge is?
Yes.
Like a modern drawbridge? Not one with a castle. Do y'all know what a drawbridge is? Like where it's usually over water, it kind of opens the road, opens up like this. So, okay. Park Street included a drawbridge over a river. As its warning lights flashed, Clarence proceeded toward the bridge. The barriers were lowered, blocking the road, and Clarence ignored them. The drawbridge itself opened, and Clarence gunned the motor and aimed right at it, but there was no collision. Why?
No, it was not a boat.
It was on a boat. See, I thought you would get that one pretty quickly. That's not the best one. Well, you didn't like the last one I
I
gave
said
you.
that wasn't depressing.
Oh, it wasn't depressing, no.
No.
I don't have time for another one.
You too.
Wait, did I just solve it?
You got it. Way to go. So, you got it. He was on a boat. He was on a boat. That's why he could go straight toward this drawbridge that was actually, it was open. Cars can't go through it, but the bridge can go. It's the only way the boat, it's the only way the boat can get through there is when the drawbridge is up. Okay. It is time for you guys to go to your next class. I think I gave you everything I need to give you. See you later.
Oh,
Later. See you later.